You're listening to Bad Dog Agility, bringing you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Esteban, and this is episode 216. Today's podcast is brought to you by HitItBoard.com. HitItBoard.com has the innovative training tools you need for agility. Having problems with the dog walk or A-frame? The HitItBoard can fix that. Your dog doesn't like tugging? They'll love the Tug It. Can't move your A-frame around by yourself? The Move It can. Go to hititboard.com and use discount code BDA10 to get 10% off your order. That's hititboard.com. Today's podcast is also brought to you by 1TDC. Dog agility can be hard on your dog's body. Help keep their joints and muscles healthy with 1TDC. 1-tetradecanol complex is a clinically studied blend of unique fatty acid oils that can support your dog's joint health. 1TDC promotes a healthy inflammatory response from head to tail. All of our listeners will automatically qualify for a great 1TDC special offer by purchasing online at BDA1TDC.com. That's BDA, the number 1, TDC.com. We are back home from Tulsa, Oklahoma this past weekend where we held the American Kennel Club's National Agility Championship. And I am very pleased to welcome to the podcast Sarah Baker, the 20-inch champion with her Border Collie Hops. Sarah, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Of course, Sarah Baker is our sponsored athlete, and she had herself a tremendous weekend. Her and Hops, now that's the third time that they have won this event. And so, Sarah, let's get a little bit of history here. When did you first win AKC Nationals? You went back to back.
Yes, 2015, I won with Hops and Rice won the 20-inch preferred. And then 2016, Hops won the 20-inch class again.
And then what happened in 2017?
Hops had a shoulder injury, and he was out for at least 8 months. And so he was not able to qualify for that year's, or wasn't able to come back for that year's nationals.
Yeah, that's a really big deal. 8 months is a long period of time for a dog to be out. I'm sure it must have been difficult, frustrating, anxiety provoking. And then last year qualified and was able to attend the event, made the challenger round, right? But did not win out of the challenger round. And
yes,
so that's right, did not advance to the finals. And then now you come into the event this year. So tell us a little bit about, what were your thoughts? What were your goals? What was kind of your mindset before you stepped into the ring for any of the runs?
Well, this year I actually was just plainly glad to be there. Hops was coming off of a toe injury, and we had not done any practicing, training for nationals. We were just barely coming back to being able to run a full course. And I am slightly injured with my hamstring. So I was just happy to be there and thought we would just do the best for where we were at that moment. So I had no expectations.
Right. And for people who follow all of us very closely, they know that Hops was not at Westminster this year. So Westminster was me and Jen, and Sarah Baker was noticeably absent, right? And that was due to this injury that Hops had. And you wanted to get him ready for nationals. So good decision. Right? It worked out for you. And so
Definitely.
The first thing I wanted to do was put this achievement, because this is the third national championship for a handler, which is a big deal. Third national championship for a dog, which is arguably even a bigger deal, right? Because a handler can certainly span much longer than a dog's lifespan and do it with multiple dogs. But, for one dog, it's a really big deal. And in doing the research, I uncovered some very interesting things. And so, first of all, you're a 3-time winner, but not in 3 consecutive years. So I think that's pretty interesting. And when we are looking through the records, and we went through all of the records, every national event ever held by the American Kennel Club, I'm not going to talk about preferred dogs for a couple of different reasons, but mostly because we didn't have preferred championship right from the start. So you can't really talk about it very well in terms of the history of it as far as comparisons. And so when we look back through the records, you see that 22 different dogs have won the National Agility Championship, the NAC title, more than one time. And of the 22, 14 of those dogs are repeat winners. Okay, that means they won twice, but that's it. That means 22 minus 14, 8 have won not only twice, but they've won at least 3 times. Okay, we've had one dog that's won actually 4 times, right? 4-time winner. We'll get to that in a minute. There's a few special handlers that we need to talk about because they were able to win 3 times, but with different dogs. And the first one that we'll also talk about in just a minute is Robin Kletke, because he went 3-peat, not in a row, not in consecutive years. Actually, I think it was consecutive years, 03, 05, 06 with Tigger, 8-inch dog. But he also won with his Border Collie Minx in 20 inches in 2014. So Robin's won 4 NACs, a 3-peat, plus 1 more with his Border Collie. The next person to talk about is Daisy Peel. She's won 3 times, but not with the same dog. Twice with Solar, once with Jester, all at 26 inches. 2007 for Jester, and then 2010, 2012 for Solar. We have Barb Davis, and she's a very interesting case because she won twice with Sketcher. She won twice with Rocket, so that would put her at 4. But of course, here in this podcast, we're not counting the preferred championship. So Rocket won in 06, that was at 12 inches, and then in 2014 at 8 inches. So not counting that one, apologies to Rocket. We're going to say that Rocket in 06, Sketcher in 2013, Sketcher again in 2015. That's going to give Barb Davis 3 NACs with 2 different dogs. And in my opinion, one of the coolest cases, I think we have a three generation lineage here from Kate Moreau with Quick, Driven, and then Smart, 2006, 2008, 2016. So 3 national championships for Kate, but with 3 different dogs, which is its own remarkable feat. And so let's start with the legend himself. And that dog is, or let me start with the handler. That's Terry Smorch, and the dog is Remy. The height class is 20 inch. It's the same height class that you did this in. And they actually won 4 times, right? Wow. 2001, 2, 3, and 5. There's a gap in 04 where I think the AKC was moving the event around, the timing of the event. Like it used to be maybe in the winter, and then they moved it to January, and then the Invitational came along, and then you can't have 2 events just 1 month apart. So it gets pushed to the spring. So if you look through the AKC records, it kind of looks like the year 2004 is missing. That's because I think the actual event for that year was held in 2005. And so Remy was a legendary, remarkable dog, but that was a long time ago, right? We're talking almost 20 years ago. Sarah, do you know Terry Smorch?
Yes.
Yes. And are you familiar with the dog Remy? Like, does that, if someone says, oh yeah, this dog, 20-inch dog Remy, have you heard of Remy? Right? So it was a long time ago, right? I think Jen and us, we were around, but this was actually before you came into agility. And you're closing in on 10 years now here, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so this is a long time ago. So if we tighten up the list, actually before we do that, so Terry and Remy were 4-time winners. Let's look at all the 3-time winners. And I'm just going to list them out here. First one is Ashley, Deacon, and Luca. That's in the 16-inch height class. Ashley and Luca, of course, AKC legends. Betsy Lynch and Ren. I think this is very under the radar. And in a minute, I'm going to bring Jennifer in on this one. That's in the 8-inch height class. Debbie Moore in April, 8-inch height class. She goes back to the 90s. We're talking 98, 99, and 2000. Of course, here in Texas, we know her. Jerry Brown, another Texas guy with Border Collie Sterling. That was in the 24-inch height class. They did it 3 times and in non-consecutive years, 03, 06, 07. Robin Kletke and Tigger at 8 inches. Of course, there's you. And Terry Smorch also did it with a different dog. So Terry Smorch has actually won 7 times as the handler, right? So he did it with Pixie, Kazan in 16 inches. And again, that was in the 90s. So 97, 98, and 99. And so when we think about these dogs and these handlers, you're talking about a very special group of people, right? And so I think it is a remarkable achievement. And one of the things that we mentioned in the commentary for the finals, because Sarah Fernandez-Lopez, and I did the commentary for both the challenge round and the finals for Four-Legged Flicks. We're also going to talk a little bit about that. I'm pretty sure that I mentioned I didn't think anyone would ever do this again. Okay, in the modern era, maybe in any height, but especially not the 20-inch height, because the 20-inch height, you're talking about 400 dogs. So this year, let me get the exact number for you. It was 393, right? So Hops is the winner, 393 dogs that he has to finish first in order to get his third title. What was Remy having to go through, 20 years ago? The classes were about half the size. We know that for 2005, only 19 of the 181 dogs entered in the 20-inch class had 3 clean runs. Right? Can you imagine that? Only 19 dogs went 3 clean in the 20-inch high class. At this trial, it was a ton more than that. So, a little more competitive. Agility has obviously changed. The event has grown, almost 1,500 total dogs. So the next thing that I wanted to point out is, let's see who's done it in the last 10 years. Because it is so different to have done it so long ago when agility was a smaller sport. Maybe it was a little bit easier to do some of those repeats. In the last 10 years, hops 2015, 2016, 2019, Betsy Lynch and Ren 2016, 17, 18. I think that's very notable. And the only other person would be Ashley, Deacon, and Luca. Everyone else is more than 10 years out. Okay. And 2 of those dogs were in the 90s, right? Which is like 20 years out. But Luca was 07, 2011, and 2012, right? So even the first one, 07, is more than 10 years ago, right? But Luca, of course, world champion, also FCI Agility World Championship, medium high class dog. So legendary dog there. So Sarah, this is really tremendous. Tell me, now that I've told you all that, how does that make you feel? We put your achievement with hops into a little bit of a historical context. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel amazing. I still can hardly believe that we did it a third time. I was in shock and I was crying, and it was quite amazing.
Does it make you feel so amazing that you forget now that you're sick and you have the cough and the post NAC blahs? So if you feel a little bit of coughing, thank you for coughing, just to demonstrate that, I'm telling the truth for everybody. Yeah. So unfortunately, Sarah got sick. So I'm doubly appreciative that she's joining me and Jennifer here for this podcast. But that's very awesome. But Jennifer, I was a little bit surprised when I was going through here, and I just didn't realize that Ren had won 3 times in 3 consecutive years. Ren was again in the finals this year. Right. And she's got this new up and coming dog who did great finals at Westminster, Betsy Lynch. And I think that's a name that a lot of people don't know. And I think for 2 reasons. One is that I feel like she's very modest, right? Like she's not out there and tooting her own horn, in terms of personality. But also there's a little bit of this 8-inch class thing, and this reminds me a lot of Masher. Like if people ask me, well, who's the greatest AKC dog that ever lived? I'm going to say it's Masher. Right? Because we've got the numbers. And Masher is this Papillon running 8 inches. And a lot of people may not have heard of Masher, but statistically, Masher was a dominant dog, a complete outlier in every sense of the word. Masher's one of the greats. And now Ren at 8 inches in we're going to talk about 8-inch class too in a little bit. But I want to hear about Jennifer because Jennifer, Betsy. So tell me a little bit about their story.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said. Betsy is a student of mine and a very good friend of mine and has been training with me since before Ren was even born, but she was in puppy classes and I see her every week. Even the Tuesday right before we left for Tulsa, she was in class, and Betsy is very, very kind, very modest, 100% agree with what you said. She's, not out there bragging about everything and is just a genuinely nice, kind person willing to help anyone out. But Ren is an incredible dog. Ren is only 6 years old. 6 years old and has won 3 years in a row and was in finals this year. But she also was in finals with her young dog, Lark, who is only 2 years old. Mm-hmm. Now, Lark and Ren are related. So that's kind of a cool little fun fact. And Ren has done a lot more than just those wins at AKC National. She's won Westminster. And the year that she won Westminster, she actually was the fastest dog of any of the heights, but did not get that all-around award. That was something that was kind of controversy because for an 8-inch dog to beat out, the 16, the 20s, and the 24s, but based on yards per second, she still did not win. So, she's a great handler, great trainer. And, I think that 8-inch class, we're seeing a bit more and more depth in that class. I mean, really some good competition out there this year for sure.
Yeah, the 8-inch class is insane. And let's actually, since we're talking about it, let's go ahead and talk about them. And so I wanted to point out that the 8-inch class, the results, like the top 4 or 5 dogs were all less than a second from each other. The top 3 dogs, I think, were all within hundreds a tenth or two of each other, duking it out. Part of that was the nature of the course. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But I found this very cool stat. I'm about to give you the Q rate for the last 3 years for the 8-inch height class in finals. Check this out. 3 years ago, 2017, 55%. Last year, 2018, 71%. This year, 90%. All right. These 8-inch dogs are getting very, very serious. These Papillons are really, really good. The handling is very, very good. And you're seeing a lot of really great performances. And to me, that makes Ren's dominance during this time even more impressive. But I think there's a lot of growth in the 8-inch class here. And I think a little more, mainstream, right? People are aware. People are watching the classes. I know certainly there was a time when I was like, 8-inch, there's a couple of dogs and, I'm not going to watch that class, right? Years and years ago, 15 years ago. But it's not that way anymore. This is a class I try and get out there, watch those dogs run. I was certainly very excited to call those runs for both the Challenger round and the finals, right? It was very remarkable.
I think the Q rate is super important to mention because it shows the depth of the class and how great they're coming along, because look at it compared to the 16-inch class, which I just happen to know the stats of, where only 7 dogs ran clear in finals, which is less than 50%. So if you're in finals, you can kind of sit there and go, well, a bunch of these dogs are going to have a mistake. Maybe I'll get a placement or I'll move up. But the 8-inch dogs, they can't think that. They have to sit there and go, what'd you just say? 90% of those dogs in finals are going to run clean. So they can't just go out there and say, well, I hope I run clean and maybe I'll get a top 4 finish. They actually have to really lay it on the line, really push for it, really go for it. And I think one of the reasons that the 8-inch class is sometimes overlooked and used to be overlooked, and I really, really, really try hard not to have that mindset, because I do have so many great 8-inch students and P4s, but we see the 12 and the 16-inch dogs often on that world team platform going out for teams. We see the 20s. It's such a huge class. So if you're in the 20-inch class, if you're one of those 300 dogs, you're paying attention, so you tend to be more aware. And then same thing, 24 is kind of on that international platform. So I think sometimes the 8-inch dogs get overlooked because they're not out there on teams or they're not going for teams, but they really, really shouldn't. I mean, there are some great teams, some great dogs, some great handlers. And as you said, they just keep getting better and better. And people should definitely, pay attention to that and notice the stats, how close the top 3 placements were within a second in the Q rate. So I'm really happy to be giving the 8-inch dogs and the toy dogs definitely some of the attention that I think some handlers or some teams overlook them.
Yeah, I totally agree. Agree with everything that you said there. I did want to talk a little bit about our weekends, and our meaning me and Jennifer. Obviously, Sarah Baker here, the big winner. We're going to give you a few minutes here to recover your voice before we ask you some questions again.
Okay.
And Jennifer, tell us a little bit about your weekend. How did everything go down, right? We were all 3 of us here, including Sarah Baker, were part of the before and after course that we did. We do this every year before nationals. We go in there, and 4 dogs. We were looking at Swift and Pink for Jennifer. I had Gitchy. Sarah Baker had Hops. Obviously, Sarah Baker wins it. And, I think all the dogs are very, very good. So Jennifer, tell us what happened.
So for me, on paper, honestly, it was probably one of the best nationals that I've had in terms of consistency and overall results. It was the fewest number of dogs that I had run in a while. I only had 4 dogs, which 4 seems like a lot, but actually for me, that was one of my lower numbers. I usually am running 5 and 6. And so if we consider challengers almost to be kind of a finals event, they go down to 1 ring and everybody's watching, all 4 of my dog made a finals. All 4 of them. I had 2 in challengers, one of which won out, Pink won out of challengers into finals, which then put me with 3 dogs in finals. So on paper, every single dog I took made a finals, which is incredible and beyond thrilling for me. And then to win challengers, not a place I like to be. I don't want to be in challengers, but I have won out of challengers before in the past, and I was able to do it again with Pink. And I tease, for those that maybe didn't see my Facebook post, that in Lucky's case, Lucky was the last 16-inch dog to make finals, and had Pink run 3 clear, Lucky wouldn't have made it. So I feel like Pink was being kind to her brother there and said, I'll make a mistake. And that way Lucky gets in and then I'll go win challengers and we can all be one happy family in finals. So I kind of teased that Pink was being kind there. So Swift and Lucky earned their way into finals, going 3 clear, being only 2 of 3 Shelties that made the 16-inch finals, which is pretty cool. We were in there with Marcy and Stripe. And then Pink going into challengers, and then winning out of challengers to go on to finals. Now, once in finals, we had a little bit of not even a little bit, who am I kidding? An extremely heartbreaking finals with Swift and Pink both posting times that would have won, and each of them with 1 bar. So that was an incredible bummer. If we're being honest, not as much of a bummer for Pink. She won last year. I know she's great. She doesn't need to prove anything to me. She doesn't need to prove anything to anyone else. But Swift being a Sheltie going out into the 16-inch class with so many Border Collies, to be able to post that time was incredible. I never in a million years would have imagined he had the potential to win. I was just happy he got into finals. So it was super heartbreaking of a bar, but he's great. I know it. And he did actually finish 8th. He was the fastest time. So once the 7 clears got placed out, he was the 8th place dog. And then Lucky, not to be overlooked. He's kind of my little hidden superstar. He's 6 years old. He has made 5 consecutive finals at AKC Nationals. Every national he has been to, he has been in a finals. He ran clean and got 5th place this year. So he's kind of my little hidden superstar. He's never attended a nationals and not made finals. So all in all, I had a great weekend. In the preliminary rounds of the 3 dogs, of the 3 rounds with the 4 dogs, we were 10 for 12 with both of those 2 NQs being handler errors. I opened up and did a really poorly executed front cross on Clever, costing her a spot in the finals. And then I did a really, really, really crummy rear cross with Pink and jumpers. Both of those kind of, the Pink's jumpers run kind of seen in the before and after. So those of you that were in that got to see my incredibly embarrassing attempt at a rear cross there. Again, Pink's always great. So I did nothing but laugh and say, I'm sorry, because it was 100% me. So that was my weekend. All in all, great. But again, incredibly heartbreaking to be so close yet so far away. So start the training for 2020.
Yeah, it was a fantastic 16-inch final, I will tell you that. And certainly congratulations to Najee Barricos, who won it with Border Collie Annie. Interestingly, when you and Pink won it last year, Najee and Annie were second, right? So this year they go from second to winning it. I'm sure he's very, very happy about that. They had a fabulous run. But as you said, Swift put in an insane run. And Swift, of course, is the overall silver individual medalist from the FCI Agility World Championship. And just a really tremendous, phenomenal dog. And calling the 16-inch class was super exciting. So let's just stay there for a second, because there's something that I think the two of you have in common here. And it's that, two sides of the same coin. You have both felt and had disappointments, right, in the ring with these dogs, and also the big wins, the tremendous success. And the ability to deal with both of those, I think, speaks a lot to your mental game. And something that we're putting together right now, and this is going to be a collaborative effort from all of us here, is putting together a course to help people who are struggling with many different aspects of your mental game. Of course, anyone who signed up for the prep or doing the before and after, you got our PDF on visualization and how we use it. And people who were able to use it, I think, put it to very, very good use. But Jennifer, let me start with you. All the success, all these wins, you come in, you're absolutely on fire, you're on a roll. Pink's just gone back to back at Westminster. You've got not one, not two, 3 shots here. You got 3 dogs in the 16-inch finals, and then you have the 2 1-bar runs. And if the bar doesn't come down, you had the faster time. So what was the emotional fallout like just in the immediate moments after? And then what was kind of your process over the next 1 or 2 days? Like, how do you deal with that? And what kind of tips can you give people who are listening in who kind of struggle with that, or they're very disappointed with their nationals performances? Whether for a lot of these people that they didn't even make the finals, very, very upsetting to them in a long drive or flight back home.
I'm a pretty emotional person within that 5 or 10 minutes after the run. So I will tell you that immediately following, I was incredibly, incredibly disappointed. Again, a little bit more so with Swift and Pink. I'm still not sure I feel that a Sheltie will ever have the opportunity that he had to be able to make finals seeded so high and give the Border Collies a run for their money. So, I know I'm last year's champion and I have a 16-inch Border Collie, but I am definitely rooting for the non-BCs in the 16-inch class. Shelties or anything else, I'm definitely rooting for them. And I am kind of in the mindset of, again, I'm not really sure when a non-Border Collie is going to have a real shot at it. So the fact that Swift had that time was very heartbreaking. I would have loved to have turned around and actually see that his time wasn't fast enough. And I could have coped with that. I could have coped with that and said, wow, he had a great run. Bummer about the bar. That's kind of our thing. So it wasn't really surprising for Swift. Incredibly surprising for Pink. She rarely hits bars, whether she's running at 16 or 20. She's a dog. She makes mistakes. I didn't feel like she had to, go out and prove anything. Would it have been awesome to have back-to-back with her? Sure, most certainly it would have. But when I watched my video back, it was handling. She hit the bar because I was cueing a change of direction over a bar. And what's interesting is I actually changed my plan for Swift because of what happened with Pink. And then in hindsight, my plan with Swift was not what I had walked for him. And I think actually somewhat contributed to his bar. So had I done what I planned for him, I'm not convinced the bar would have come down. But hindsight's 2020, right? We can always sit back and say, well, had I done this? Had I run Swift's plan with Pink and Pink's run with Swift? Had I reversed their handling? I think each of them would have respectfully kept up their bar. But I think that. I don't know that. So in the moment, very, very, very disappointed, very upset, but not at my dogs, never at my dogs. They were great. I caused Pink's bar. I just shoved turkey meatballs down their throat when they got done, but I was very disappointed. But as time passes, you kind of reflect on it and you sit back and we talked about this before we left, when I don't know, when one of the podcasts or webinars we were doing, but I always ask myself in 5 years, will it matter? And I can honestly tell you right now in this exact moment, I do not know who 5 years ago 16-inch champion was. So yes, it stinks. And I was so close. But in 5 years, it will seem less important in the grand scheme of life, having a 4-year-old kid, having a business, so I always try to put it into perspective that way. And then there's always the idea that there's always going to be another show. There's always going to be another national championship. Where I think people really struggle is when they do have the older dogs who maybe it was their last one. And then they sit back and reflect. And that's kind of where I'm at with Clever. It was super disappointing to potentially be, I'm not going to 100% say her last national, but was going to maybe her last national, to sit and know that had I done a better front cross, she could have been in finals. And I think her times would have been respectful in the finals as well. And that gets hard. But the dogs don't know, right? The dogs don't know they didn't win. The dogs don't know they didn't make finals. They got to run. They got to have a good time. We reward them. We're the ones that drove them out to Oklahoma. So we got to be kind to them and kind of learn from it, right? You either win or you learn. And so we're learning. We're learning what we can change and what we can make better, and using it more as motivation to try to get better. And I think that's a big thing for everyone, right? If you win, and if I remember reading a blog about that from Sylvia Turkman years ago when she won gold, and she went, okay, well, now what? I won gold. I'm the best in the world. But when she won silver, now she said, okay, I got to be faster. I got to be 0.1 faster. I've got to make that front cross better. I've got to tighten up that rear cross. And it really gave her a lot of motivation for the next year on what to change and what to improve. And I think that's kind of where we have to look at things is, okay, take that, sit on it for a couple days or a week and be frustrated or be upset, but then say, okay, time to be better, come back even better and even stronger.
I love that. And everybody who's listening, you just heard that from someone who dropped a bar in the finals, not one dog, but two.
Right.
Dogs. Either
not
one of them.
But two. Either one of them would have been fast enough.
Either one would have won. So I think that's great, and hopefully can help people out who are listening. I thought about transitioning to my sad tale, but first I want to go to the other side of that coin, and that's the Sarah Baker. Sarah, one of the conversations that we were having on the Facebook group for our VIP members, right? And it came up and they're like, man, this woman is a stone cold clutch performer, just ice water in her veins to win a third time, to come through almost 400 dogs, show up in the finals. You're seated, I think, what was it, 6th or 7th?
Yes, 6th.
Right? right? Which implies, the fact is that there were 5 20-inch dogs who put in faster cumulative runs than you heading into the finals. I won't mention what happened in hybrid where Hops did the thing and maybe he lowered himself down just a spot or two. But even then, that's just a spot or two. We know that a lot of these dogs are really, really fast. But when I was looking at this course before you ran it, I thought, this is a Hops course. This is a course where Sarah's experience as a handler and knowing Hops lines are just going to be really good. Like this course is made for Hops. That was my feeling. So when people ask you, I'll ask for them, how are you doing this? Like, how are you so clutch now? This is like your 4th nationals, 3rd finals. And every time you're in the finals, you just go out and win, right? First place.
I'm not exactly sure how it happens. I know some of it's luck. Some of it's that Hops is incredible. I've certainly worked hard on our teamwork. And really what's been better and better each year is I've gotten a lot better at my mental management, and I've had fewer and fewer nerves, and that definitely helps.
Yeah. And I think that's a very common theme. When you get to these kind of competitions, you're going to have those nerves and you need to know how to manage them, how to push them aside. A lot of people get these extraneous thoughts that pop into their head right when they're coming up to the line, right? You start thinking about things that's really weird to think about. You know, I like to say the most common one I think about is Sarah here? Is she taping my run? You know, we need to get this run down, you know, but that's not what you should be focusing on at all. And so you got to be able to have a lot of control in your mind, a lot of focus. That's what focus is, the ability to tune out distractions, whether that's the crowd, whether it's the incredibly fast run the dog before you just put in, etc. And one other thing that I wanted to mention about Sarah Baker is she's got a puppy, and not even a puppy anymore. This dog is now a young dog and coming out so tremendous. Was not here at nationals because it just started trialing. This dog is named Skeptic. Sarah, tell us a little bit about Skeptic, because Skeptic is going to be in just a few months, in just a few weeks, really, in California for the AWC trials. Is that right?
Correct. He qualified almost exclusively through Premier Cues because he's not even in Master Jumpers yet.
Yeah, and this dog is phenomenal, just like Hops, has the running contacts. And so amazing that she's already brought him to that kind of level. And I'm very interested in seeing what they're going to do at their first tryouts, which is going to be their first big event. So, you know, most people, their first big event is like nationals or something. And then eventually they go to tryouts and this dog is just boom, ready to go. So she certainly knows what she's doing with puppies. That's exciting to me. I know that Jennifer's got a puppy right now. I'm about to get a puppy, like very, very soon. And so what Sarah has done is put together a puppy course. And so I'm in the editing process of that course. I'm watching it 2 ways, right? I'm watching it as the editor. I'm like, okay, you know, working on the grammar and this and that and the organization. But then also I'm like getting all the tips, right? Oh man, I got to do this with my puppy. I got to do this with my puppy. And it turns out everything she does, every video, everything she writes, I'm like, I'm going to write this down. And you know what? You're basically just writing down the whole course because everything in there is so good. So that is coming in the next few weeks. That's actually going to come out before our whole mental game stuff. So definitely those of you out there who have a puppy or who are getting a puppy and you want to know how we're all kind of ending up in these high level competitions and doing very well. Of course, it starts with the foundations, right? And I really like what Sarah's done here because her puppy is a little bit rambunctious. Is that, oh, okay? You were saying crazy. I was going for the rambunctious, but I think that's very helpful. And Skeptic, tell us a little bit about Skeptic, breed, how big he is.
Well, Skeptic he's registered as an English Cocker Spaniel, but he's an import from England, and they call them walkers there, working Cocker Spaniels. And he is in the 16-inch class, just barely. He measures 14 and a half inches. And he's a little spitfire. He has a ton of energy, never stops moving, and he's been an interesting project.
Yeah, he is a tremendous dog. And when Sarah first told me that she had gotten an English Cocker Spaniel, I thought to myself, what? What? And then I saw this dog and he was so crazy. And I was like, wow, how's this going to work? And I should never have doubted her in any sense of the word doubt, because she is a remarkable and gifted trainer. and handler, but seeing that dog's progress is phenomenal. So I'm very excited about that puppy class that we're going to be putting out. Okay, now I will go and talk just briefly about my experience this weekend with Gitchy. So Gitchy obviously had made 3 finals in a row. She was here with the before and after, and she had a really not a good weekend. And it wasn't bad in terms of, mistakes and things like that, although there was one thing in every single round. It was just that globally, everywhere, she was running a little bit slower, and that's because she wasn't running full speed. She was kind of loping. So if you look at certain parts of the run, straight lines, it's almost like she was sauntering, a little bit of a jog. And, I thought she did okay at Westminster. And so based on what the surgeon had told us, for those of you who don't know, she had arthroscopic surgery. So I took her to European Open tryouts in the first week in December. She did well there, except she got worse and worse each run in terms of her time. Suddenly she was incurring all these time faults. And I was like, this isn't right. Took her to the surgeon. The surgeon said, we need to look in there and see what's going on. They looked in there. They found extensive damage. She had PRP and stem cells. Right. And, they took out all the dead tissue and fixed things up in there. And so she was able to rehab, come back, do okay at Westminster. And then, the surgeon was saying, okay, Westminster's kind of soon, but by nationals, she should be a lot stronger and ready to go. And that just wasn't the case. I don't know if it was the dirt. I don't know if something else happened, but I think this ends up being a little bit unexpectedly to me. Probably the last time that I will run her, and certainly her last big competition. I don't see a future where she comes back. Maybe she does a little bit of preferred running. I think that would be back in Louisiana with her co-owner, Susan Frazier. She can run in preferred over there. So Jennifer was talking about, how you get there with that older dog. And then I just wouldn't even let myself think about it. Maybe I should have, but I just felt like it would make me too sad. I don't want to start crying like right before you run. I mean, that'd be a little awkward for the ring steward and the judge. But so she did not do well. And for a dog who is so remarkably consistent at, all these big events, where, her issue is much like Swiss's the bar, right? Bars have kept her from, doing a lot of great things in terms of achievements. To me, they don't matter too much. But here you had kind of non-bar mistakes, right? And so then I really worried about the physical part of all of that. But I think the people who did the before and after, they still got a lot out of it. There was a lot of course analysis, discussion of, what happened and all that stuff. Great to get 3 different points of view. And so let me get right to the finals course. Well, I guess we can talk about it generally. Sarah, let me start with you. What did you think about the difficulty of courses for the whole weekend, just in general, and not including like the ISC and the premiere, the warm up kind of stuff, but just rounds 1, 2, 3, challenge round, final? What did you think? Let's start there.
I thought they were overall fairly basic courses where you could just kind of do your regular meat and potatoes handling, serpentine lines and boxes. Okay.
And Jennifer, what did you think?
I would agree. I thought the courses were pretty on point for what I expected. In terms of specific challenges, I think we saw a little bit less with tunnel challenges than I was expecting. But I found out on my way out there that each judge is only allowed to have 1 tunnel per course because of the 6 rings. So that limits what you can do with the tunnel. And I was not aware of that. So I had been training a lot more tunnel challenges because at a local show, we can have 2 tunnels. So I sat next to one of the judges on my flight out there, and he said they were only given 1 tunnel, which I was not aware of. So in terms of specific stuff, a little bit less with tunnels. And then actually a few runs where I thought we could lead out more than I was expecting. Generally, I feel like we get courses where we don't or can't lead out too much. And I know hybrid and challengers and finals all were ones where you could take decent, long 2-3 obstacle lead out. So those were kind of the things I wasn't prepared for or I thought were different than I was expecting. But in terms of overall courses, they were pretty on point. I kind of thought hybrid maybe was a smidge harder than it was last year, or maybe a little bit harder than what I was prepared for, but not harder for the average AKC course, just harder than what I was prepared for hybrid.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with what both of you said. I don't feel like there was any significant increase in difficulty, which is kind of a weird thing because I feel like the handlers are getting better every year, for sure. I was watching people do the weave pulls in the finals, and so many people were able to peel away laterally. And 10 years ago, like only like one person will do that. And everyone's like, wow, what an amazing thing. And now it's like dog after dog after dog after dog. Even if they had problems on other parts of the course, right? The skills are just so solid. I watched a challenge around. Almost no one was having issues, with the weave poles. And so, people are training their dogs to a higher degree. They're learning more about handling and handling theory. It's getting better, but the courses, in my opinion, are kind of staying the same. And, I'm going to point you back to those 8-inch Papillon numbers, right? The Q rate just skyrocketing all the way up to 90% from about 50% a couple of years ago, with some very intense competition. But we did look at the overall Q rate. So let me give you those numbers. This is just for finals over the last 3 years. 2017 was 49%, 2018, 53%, and this year was 56%. Okay. So the Q rate was marginally up. Okay. But nothing crazy. I thought for a while that it would be, especially after we got the 90% from the 8-inch. I was like, oh my goodness, every height class is going to Q 60, 70%. But that wasn't the case. But I do feel like a lot of the mistakes that were made were more bar down and kind of less off course-ish. If that
that was
contact.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment. Is I felt that a lot of the mistakes, particularly in challengers and finals, or really particularly in finals, not necessarily as much through the other rounds, but they weren't handling faults. They weren't off courses. They weren't refusals. They tended to be more obstacle faults. So missed contact, knocked bar. So I think what that says is definitely an improvement in the handling, right? We've seen an improvement in the handling over the years. But now we got to step it up in the dog training aspect. Make sure we have that good jump training, make sure we have the independent contact training, those things. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of looking at the quantity of bars in finals, I thought was higher than normal. I don't know. I have no stats, but it just seemed like lots of dogs that don't typically hit bars were hitting bars. And I can't say that I saw a tremendous amount of off courses in finals. Again, just kind of going off the top of my head, that's not what I recall about finals was knocked bars. What I recall is missed contacts and knocked bars.
Yeah, that's what I remember too.
Well, what did you guys think of the dirt? I think this kind of segues nicely there, because anytime I think bars, I think dirt. With Gitchy, I know for a fact that she's a little more likely to drop bars on dirt. In general, I tried to get her out on a dirt show the week before this event. The dirt at Tulsa, I think 3 years ago when Hobbs won, that was a pretty epic final. Was like parts of it were very slick. It was like running on, I don't know, marbles, right? There's like dirt on top of a very hard dirt, right? So
yeah, it was much harder then.
Yeah. And this year, I think they did a very nice job making sure that didn't happen, right? Yes. But when you're running, 1,000 dogs or several hundred dogs through any one ring, it gets very soft. And it gets very soft like around the weave poles, on turns, on landings, after the triple, spots like that. What did you guys think of the dirt this year? Let me start with Jennifer.
In general, I was pretty happy with the surface. I had people ask me after I run how that feel. It was never anything that as a handler I noticed. It never distracted me mentally when I was walking or when I was running, where it was like, oh, I went to plant and I slipped a little and then I got distracted. And I can't say that I really felt like personally it affected any of my dogs. I think surface is a really good go-to when you've had a mistake, particularly a knocked bar, right? Oh, it must have been the surface, or the dirt. I know in my case, I did not feel that was the case. And watching my runs back and watching them back in slow motion, I thought that Pink's was handling and Swift's was a combination of how he likes to jump with maybe could have been better handling. I didn't feel like they were surface. Having said that, Pink rarely hits bars. So maybe there was more to it than just handling. And even other dogs, Cassie Schmidt and Bliss hit a bar. That's so unlike that dog to hit a bar. And I do think finals was tricky because you had, not only was it the end of the day, and if I recall, I don't know if they groomed the surface before finals.
They did.
They did? Okay.
Yes.
But you have so many high caliber dogs running through that dirt on the same path, on the same track. So I know finals is hard, but the surface never bothered me. It was never anything I wanted to complain about. It was never anything that distracted me. It was not anything that I felt I had direct fault as a result of. So, considering you're looking at 6 rings in 3 different buildings, so kind of 3 different surface mix, I thought AKC did a phenomenal job of trying to really provide the best surface they could for the dogs and handlers.
And Sarah, what do you think?
I absolutely agree. Last time in Tulsa, it was the dirt was much harder. And this time I was very, very pleased. And I'm very sensitive to hard dirt because any slick or hard surface Hops typically does not do as well on because he tends to slip on those surfaces. So I love the surface. It was great, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to be the third person to agree on that. I think Gitchy had a bar, 24-inch ISC, and one other bar somewhere else. Sure, it could have been the dirt. I didn't really feel like it was. Whereas Tulsa 3 years ago, that was a tough surface for some dogs. I could definitely see some bars coming down from there. I thought the AKC, as usual, did a great job running 6 rings. So there's an additional ring this year compared to last year. Last year was in Reno. There's only a little over 1,000 dogs here. They're adding about 400 more. Oklahoma's, more central. It's a popular show site. And great job with the electronic scoring, right? You can look at your phone, know what's going on in the ring, when you need to walk over. They put out all the maps in advance. The stalls were really nice. I liked it. I enjoyed all of it. I thought logistically it ran very, very well this year. Unlike last year, they got the course map out a little bit earlier. So even for the before and after our course map analyses, I did mine on Saturday, Sunday from the hotel.
Yes, me too.
Before we even got to the show site, we were already getting our thoughts down for everybody to take a look at it. My only complaint, and this really has nothing to do with the agility wing of AKC, is everything ran so wonderful, right? That for the 20-inch class at least, and Jen, you'll have to tell me if this happened for the other classes, they got an hour and a half ahead of schedule. And so some people were going off the schedule where it's like, we're going to start at such and such a time. But when you're an hour early, you're going to miss it. And so some people missed their walkthroughs. And so they had this kind of extra walkthrough that they had to do for the 20-inch dogs. I know that definitely threw off some people. And then also what that means is our whole day finishes earlier, right? So we're done. But guess what? We're not starting the challenge round any earlier. Why is that? Well, because the finals are set to start at 6 p.m. no earlier than that. So even though we could have done it earlier, we didn't. Why? Because AKC TV, which is different from Four-Legged Flicks, which is the live stream, AKC TV was doing their own live stream. They have this kind of production company, and they're like, no, we can't start any earlier than 6 o'clock. Right. So there's a lack of flexibility there. So it doesn't do you any good to be finishing early. And so let me ask Jen then, was there an issue outside of the 20-inch class?
Well, I believe the 16-inch dogs were the last class to finish on Sunday. So I was unaware that the other rings were wrapping up quite so early. My mom was the second to last dog to run in 16 inches, and I was pretty late in the order too. But you could sit there in that first ring while you're waiting on the 16-inch dogs run, and they had cleared out the other 2 rings, packing up equipment, bringing the tractor in for surface. So I knew things had to have been running early, but without keeping an eye on those other 2 barns, I didn't realize exactly how early it had been done. And then I walked over to the computer screen, I think almost before my first dog had run on Sunday, and they were already putting up the finalists and the challengers. And it really was like, wow, okay, they're really ahead of schedule. And I think the thing is, in terms of, as you said, how do they make changes? What changes do they make? If they can't move up the times, which maybe they can in the future. Right now, they know it can be early. That 6:15 walk was brutal. They ease us into it, right? So Friday it was like 8 o'clock walk, and then Saturday it was 7 o'clock walk, and then 6:15 walk. People were up early. People were up at 3:30 and 4 a.m.
It was nasty.
Pack their car and put their stuff away, and then you get there and you're there by 5:45 or 6 o'clock to walk at 6:15, and then you're done by 10. And now you wait until 6 p.m. to watch the finals, and so I think that was enough of a problem for people that a lot of people did leave, because it's not like, okay, I wait around an hour or 2 after my run to watch finals. I'm waiting around for some people 8 hours. If you got done at 10 o'clock and finals didn't start till 6, you're talking 8 hours. And for a lot of people, they could be home by then, right? Mm-hmm. They can drive home, or they can drive to a hotel and they can watch it from the computer, So I think we lost some of our numbers of live attendance, to finals because of the strong delay and the gap there. So either maybe pushing back Sunday start times or moving up Sunday finish times. But hopefully AKC has some time to change, right? I mean, they didn't know that was going to happen. Like you said, it was running early. It wasn't as though it was on schedule. So definitely some things to take into account for future years.
Yeah, hopefully so. And so I'll just explain a little bit more about AKC TV. So basically, there are 2 live streams that were going on. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to meet with the AKC TV crew. They had a 2-person commentary crew, just like me and Sarah did it for Four-Legged Flicks. So they had a person who doesn't know anything about agility, just kind of like Westminster, the Justin Kutcher role. They just, hey, look at that dog running fast. Okay, now expert person tell me about it. And the AKC brought in a competitor and judge from up in the Midwest. I'm sorry, I don't have his name. I didn't get a chance to meet him. I watched very little bit of AKC TV. And Jen, do you know who it was?
Yeah, from my understanding, it was Dave Hirsch, who is a judge and competitor and student of mine. So I actually know him quite well. And I actually haven't seen the video, but that's who I was told was doing the commentary as the kind of agility expert.
Gotcha. Okay. As far as what stream were you going to watch? I mean, I think that most competitors have been conditioned over the years to watch the four-legged flick stuff, right? The AKC TV is a little bit new. The AKC TV had, when I clicked on at some point, maybe like 250 viewers, and they're going to be usually more non-agility, right? Like kind of a general crowd who are watching other AKC TV programming in general as well. And so I think the commentary kind of needs to address that. Whereas me and Sarah, when we're talking about it, we just assume everybody knows, how things work, and that you need to hit the yellow in a contact. And, we're not going to hold your hand and explain all of those little things to you. And so just knowing that the audiences are going to be very different. Obviously, the four-legged flicks audience right there in real time is going to be significantly larger, right? Thousands of people watching, not just a couple hundred. But one thing I will say on behalf of four-legged flicks, and so of course, I'm totally biased. We did the commentary, right? Me and Sarah right here, we did the commentary, and we've been doing it for years. And, we think we do a really good job. But if you missed out on the challenger round and final, you can contact four-legged flicks, pay your money, and get it video on demand. And so exciting. Jennifer is talking about the 16-inch final. You're talking about Hops winning the third. I'm telling you about this 8-inch class. You are going to want to go and watch these things, because I thought it was one of the most exciting nationals I'd ever been a part of. I was at least 15% glad I didn't make the finals this year, just so I could call the finals, And so, really good. You still have the opportunity to do that. I'm going to get the VOD and watch it again, mostly just to hear myself talk. Let's be honest, right? No, it's to watch these guys run again, because it was really, really exciting. And I do want to see some of those dogs, running again. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about was Teeter Calls. This is a little bit of a controversial thing. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, but I will tell you from our perspective as commentators, we sat for the finals right behind the judge who's looking at the down dog walk, right? So that judge can hear everything we're saying as well. I think he was highly entertained by our comments, I must say. And the teeter, we have a very good view of the teeter, and there were a lot of close calls. Okay. There were a couple calls to me in the finals that weren't made, that I was surprised maybe they weren't made, considering I saw the same judge maybe making some more calls before the finals, right? So I always wonder with judges, are they treating their non-finals, finals, and local trials differently, right? And so, I don't want to out any judges here, but that's something that's always going to cross the mind of the competitor. And I just feel like the teeter is so difficult to call. We are asking so much of these judges, and dog after dog after dog, right? And all these speedsters, that it's going to happen that a call is going to be missed. And it's not because the judge sucks, right? It's just these things happen, right? Just like bars, sometimes they just happen. Okay. It doesn't mean your dog is evil, or they were out to get you, or something like that. And so I would like to see a system in place where they can immediately review something. Okay. And get the call right. Because you're now seeing, especially when the course is going to be a little more straightforward, a little bit easier like this year, all these dogs very close together in time, it's going to matter. And so that's my opinion on the teeter calls. Jen, what do you think? And both of you can feel free to say no comment. I'm going to leave that for you. You can say no comment. Jen, what do you think?
I 100% agree about the instant replay. I have seen teeter calls, and not just this year. I'm just in other years and past years and preliminary rounds and finals, that good or bad calls, I just felt like it was a call that was almost too hard to make in real time. I've been victim to that. I've been victim of a call that, when in slow-mo, was a good call. But I have to question if in live time they really knew 100%. So I not even making comments with regard to this year. I absolutely am a fan of the idea of instant replay for finals and challengers, for sure. There's no doubt about that. I just think our sport's gotten to that point. We have at least gotten to the 2 judges for the dog walk, or the down dog walk judge that's specific for that. And I think that's a step in the right direction. I just can't imagine that it would be that difficult logistically to do a replay system. So I'm a fan of that for sure. As far as Teeter Calls throughout the weekend, I'll say the same thing here that I said online, which is I did feel that each judge was consistent on their calls throughout the day, but I did not feel that judge to judge was consistent. I can tell you that there was one ring I was in, and I felt like, oh man, they're being sticklers on it. You better make sure it's great. And then in the other ring, I just saw them letting them go. Ones where I would have at least thought about it. They just weren't even thinking about calling. So as long as I don't even know where to say it. The judges were consistent themselves, but then you have the variety from ring to ring. And, it's the luck of the draw of what judge you get. Are you an 8-inch dog in this ring? Are you in a 20-inch dog in this ring? And what judge do you have? It's tough. I would never want to judge nationals. That is for sure. But I am going to say yes on the instant replay for sure.
No, you said it beautifully. And I think the height class where it mattered the most, people are going to be shocked by this, the 8-inch height class. Because the 8-inch height class came down to 2 things. The turn at the jump at the very end, the number 18 jump, right? How tight that turn was. And their teeter performance. If they stopped a little bit higher or they went all the way to the end of the teeter, it has a massive impact for small dogs. Big dogs doesn't matter. You pull up a foot short, it's not going to hurt you, right? I've actually timed that as an experiment, right, with Gitchy. So a difference of up to 18 inches, there's no difference in the actual performance. You don't get any difference until you have to add a stride. And so with the small dogs, it really makes a difference. And they're really hard to judge, right? You're like, are they on? Are they off? I couldn't tell. Right. And so I totally agree with you on that. And the way to make sure, just like McDonald's does, that you order a hamburger in Wisconsin, it's going to taste like the hamburger you get in Texas at McDonald's. That's what that replay is for, right? It doesn't matter how the judge is calling it. You're going to be able to not second guess the judge. You're just going to make sure quality control that you're getting the calls right at this biggest event of the year. Oh, by the way, USDAA does this, right?
Yes.
So if you're AKC, and you're looking over and you want to be the best. You want to be the bad boy on the market. You want to offer the best experience to your competitors. Guess what? USDA is doing it better than you. So I think, they need to address that. And, it's starting to turn into a thing where, we're saying it every year and every year it's mattering more and more. And I think people haven't gotten behind it like they did for the shoot, or even there was some, ruckus about the table this year. Is because it doesn't always affect everybody. Like you said, you had an experience with it, right? But how many nationals have you been to? How many finals have you been to get maybe like 1 or 2 calls in that big moment, right? Where it could really affect something, right? For me, it's happened like 1 time in nationals. You got a kind of questionable call that in slow motion, they actually got it right. So most people are not going to have that experience. So most people aren't going to think to want this thing or advocate for it because such a small group of people are involved each year. You know what I mean? And so, I think that's something as an organization you need to look at very proactively and not wait until there's some kind of mass petition, right? That's like, hey, do something about this. And so we want to be the advocate for those people out there who are in a very small minority, which is going to take me to another issue. So there's a little bit of a rant. I'm going to get started on this. It's that the AKC has a rule in the finals that if you do not run clean in the final, even if you win your round, so let's say there's 10 dogs, 9 dogs fault, you're the last dog, and you also fault. Okay. But of all the 5 fault dogs, you have the best time. Okay. You're going to be the winner. You're going to get the blue ribbon. You're going to get your photo taken with all the winners. You're not going to get the title. The title that AKC, AKC is a title driven organization. They call it the NAC, National Agility Champion, or Preferred National Agility Champion, the PNAC. PNAC. It's a prefix that you put before your dog's official registered name. It's a big deal. But guess what? It happened this year. So Sanji Brooks and Vet running in 20-inch preferred did not run clean. Nobody ran clean, but they had the best time. So we knew right away, we're familiar with the rule. I knew that they had won and we were waiting for them to take a victory lap. Sanji was already gone. There was a huge delay, and I'm not exaggerating, huge delay. The 8-inch dogs were out on the line and they had to shoo them back off the line. It may have even been Betsy Lynch, who I think was the first dog. And they're like, hey, get your dog. We still need to find the 20-inch preferred winner to get them to take a victory lap, because they know that rule. And so it's a situation to me where, let's say you're playing any sport. Let's say it's football. Okay, you just won the Super Bowl. You just won by whatever score, 14-7. Okay, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. Dallas Cowboys, you just won the Super Bowl. But you know what? Your quarterback threw 4 interceptions. And so, that's not really a great performance. It's not a perfect performance. So you won the Super Bowl. You're the winner, but you guys can't call yourselves the Super Bowl champions. You can't write that down anywhere. We're not going to give you that privilege. Okay. It's ludicrous. Once a dog makes the final and they win, they are the champion. That is the definition of a champion. This has happened before. I didn't like it then either. I really dislike it now, because look, everyone who thinks that should be the case and you need 3 clean runs to make finals, that's not even a thing anymore. Okay. So first throw that out the window. Okay. Because now everybody knows you can be 24C and get in without 3 clean runs. All right. 24C is his next rant. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Sanji and Vet won round 1. Okay. First place. They won round 2. First place. They won round 3. First place. They won the final. First place. You, the AKC, are going to walk up to Sanji's face and tell her, you are not the winner of this event? Are you kidding me? You just won all 3 rounds and the final, and I'm not going to give you the honor of putting PNAC in front of your dog's name? I feel that this is morally wrong. In terms of sports, it is ludicrous and is based on ridiculous, archaic assumptions about how our game should be played. It is time to change this. And more importantly, because it's my feeling that it will be changed eventually, because it is so ridiculous, because it speaks to a lack of fairness. This is so ridiculous that I think this should be like posthumous. Well, these dogs are alive, but they can go backwards. And everyone else who this happened to, they should get a nice letter from the AKC that says, you can take the high road, AKC. We have examined this issue and we have determined that you are in fact entitled to using the prefix PNAC or NAC in front of your dog's registered kennel name. Congratulations. Signed by the whoever on the board, whatever, and Carrie DeYoung, AKC Director of Agility, underneath that. Okay. That's how it should go down. That's my opinion. Now I'm going to open it up to you guys. And again, you have the ability to say no comment. Okay. Jennifer, you first.
I agree. I 100% agree. I will comment. I agree. And I hope that if they do change, which I agree with you that they probably will, I hope they do. I do agree that it also should go back in time, because Sanji was not the first dog. And I remember the first time that it did happen, I was incredibly bummed for the person. I don't even think I knew them. And I just, couldn't believe it. Here's your trophy. Here's your ribbon. You just won first place in finals. We're going to give you all that. We're not going to mail you the, 2-cent certificate, and we're not going to put that title in front of your name that literally cost them nothing. What does it cost them to put that title in front of the dog's name and mail them a certificate? So I'm in favor. I vote yes.
Nice. I like it. Bold. Okay, Sarah Baker.
I agree. I vote yes as well.
Awesome. Okay, that makes it 3 for 3. Now I know that my Sarah is not, she's not joining us in on this podcast, although she is listening. I'm going to say she's 4 for 4. Yeah. So I got the head nod there. That means yes. 4 for 4. And that's going to take me right into my next rant. And it's going to be about the 24C class. I'm just going to start with the position. And my position is it should not exist. Okay. And the reason it should not exist. And actually, you know what? I'm going to force Sarah into this podcast now.
This is the one thing that I'm going to have a hard time being quiet about.
Okay. You start talking and outline it, because my position is Sarah's position. I feel that it is very unfair. It shouldn't exist. I'm going to start you with one number here. Okay. Everyone, I think about 7% of dogs made the finals, and then plus a challenger dog, right? The 24C class had 24 dogs entered in it. 24. Guess how many dogs they had in the finals? 6, right? 5 plus 1. 6 out of 24, let me do the math here, is 25%. Everybody else is putting only 7% of their dogs in. You only have a 7% chance to get into the finals. But if you're 24C, 1 in 4. 1 in 4. You know what? If I had a Papillon, right, who could jump 24, I would put in 24.
Right.
Get my clean runs and show up in the final. Okay. And in the final, when there's only 6 dogs, the NQ rate is going to be knowingly high. This year, there were only 2 clean runs, right? I'm at least going to get my 3rd place ribbon if I can run clean. You know what I mean?
Is it my turn?
My apologies.
All right.
Let me turn it over to the boss.
All right. So here's my thing about the 24C. So the problem is not that they got 24%. That is a problem, but that's just the result of the math. There's guaranteed 7%. And we see this in some of the preferred classes that are also very small. They get more than 7% because by definition or by virtue of being preferred, there are fewer dogs entered and therefore you get a slightly higher percentage. But the real issue with 24C is it is the only optional class in the entire AKC Agility National Championship. So everybody has to jump their measured height, and then you have this random special class for dogs that want to jump 24. And even though I loved watching the 26-inch class when it existed, even back then, I disagreed with it on logical principle for the same reason. It was the only optional class, and it was meant to be there as a way for the world team hopefuls to showcase their skills at the same height that they would internationally, but they didn't have an 18-inch class. They didn't have a 14-inch class, which, just again, it was just this random class for the large dogs, and you weren't giving the world team hopefuls in the small and the medium class the same opportunity. So I always had a problem with it, and that problem just got worse when it switched from 26 to 24, because now it's not even a different height. It's the same height, 24. It's confusing for anybody who is not, well-versed in the sport. And not only that, but there was an extra rule added that said you could not do 24C if you were 24, right? So when it was 26, the 26-inch height class was made up of some 24-inch dogs, some 20-inch dogs that were all electing to jump 26. Now the 24C cannot have any dogs that naturally measure into 24. So you've cut that number, you've made it even smaller, and you've essentially split up a little bit the 20-inch height class into some people jumping 24C, some people jumping 20. And you have made what height you enter a part of the strategy, a part of the game. Mm-hmm. Do I want to jump higher and have a much better chance of making the finals? Do I want to escape that 20-inch class and all of the dogs like Hops that are going to be in it and go jump in the 24C-inch class instead? So, for multiple reasons, I really don't like that idea, that gamemanship of the height, the illogic ability. Man, I'm just making up words now. So the illogical choice of having a random height class that you do not have for other heights. I mean, taking that same, we had 26 and we didn't have 18 and we didn't have 14. You could say, why don't we have a 16C? For the dogs that measure into 12, but they have to jump 16 internationally, and they could all optionally decide to jump 16C. Why don't we have a 12C for all of the 8-inch dogs that jump 12 inches internationally so that they can, show what they can do at 12? It just doesn't make sense to have this one class.
Absolutely. And I'm about to blow your mind because I'm going to tie this to my other rant. The reason that they have a minimum number of dogs in there, and you saw this in effect here with the 24C, 6 dogs, they only got 2 clean runs out of it. But imagine, as in years past, when they did the straight percentages, sometimes 26-inch class only had 2 dogs. And what happens if neither of them run clean? Well, they don't get to award the title. Remember, because of that other rule that I don't like. So what was their solution? It wasn't to go ahead and award the title. It was to try and put more dogs into the final, creating another unfairness, right? So they tried to fix an unfairness, or it's not even unfairness. It's something that they didn't want, something they found undesirable, and their solution was to make things unequal, to make things unfair, to create another problem. But that's why that happens, because they're like, we need a minimum of 6 in each height class to get the best possible chance that one of these dogs is going to run clean, and we won't look like fools, or we won't look like meanies not giving them their title.
And frankly, I'm surprised that there have not yet been 16-inch dogs jumping 24C. I mean, okay, do we all remember the days?
I can.
Jennifer remembers the day.
Yes.
You know what I'm about to say, don't you?
Go ahead.
Sunny, the Australian Shepherd, 16-inch dog,
World team member. National agility champion.
At 26 inches, world team member. So this small dog that was physically able to jump high heights, made the world team at 26 inches, competed in nationals, at least in the state team tournament and stuff, at 26 inches. That dog could absolutely just show up at 24. Now it's 2 inches less, 24C. Yep. I'm surprised we don't have more dogs like that. We had a 16-inch border collie that measured into the 26-inch height class at international. She jumped 26 at local trials. She tried out for the world team. She could, she's no longer with us.
I kept her in 20 just so 16-inch people wouldn't be mad at me because, back then. Yeah.
Pink would be an example. Like I compete with her at 20. I only do 16 at nationals. So,
there you go.
She would be one who theoretically I could enter 24C and move her out of that 16-inch class. And I think, like you said, there's other dogs that could. I mean, she's on the smaller end of the scale. She's only about 17 and a quarter, 17 and a half. But you take an 18-inch dog. You take an 18-inch dog and put them in 24C. You mentioned Sunny. Same thing with Awesome. Awesome was a 16-inch jumping border collie who won a gold medal at 26 inches. So they exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All of these are very good points. Hopefully people understand. Definitely if you're not clear on it, and definitely if you have a differing opinion, just shoot us an email at team@baddogagility.com.
That's right.
Yeah. Share your thoughts there. This is nothing that we have not said before. So don't even get us started. Okay. I do want to close by congratulating all the competitors. Everyone did a wonderful job. Like I said, so exciting. I'm so glad that I was able to watch so much more this year, by not making the finals. And a wonderful congratulations to Sarah Baker and Hops, a tremendous achievement. I hope that we were able to place it into historical context for you, show you really how remarkable of a thing that it is that you guys did together. Thank you to the AKC. Certainly, I know we've been very hard on them about these two little things, but they are putting together year after year some really tremendous, well-run shows, managing lots of dogs and really providing an experience that people are very excited to share with their families and friends about, and not just on social media, but in person, and get them motivated to continue on in the sport. So I think it's a really big deal that they do it the way that they do it. All right. Well, remember to keep an eye out. We've got the puppy class coming with Sarah Baker, 3-time national champ with Hops, preferred national champion with Rice. So we've got that puppy class coming up. And then after that, all three of us are going to be involved with the mental game part of agility. I think that people very often struggle with. And so, keep an eye out for that. But that's all we've got for now. Happy training.